And I want to do something a little bit different this week. We're going to bring up Scott Bahr in a little while. And let me just kill my other big screen here. And what we're going to talk about tonight is Scott's involvement in market research in the RV and the outdoor hospitality industries. He's probably one of the best known market research people in the country for this type of information. He's also the man behind the KOA North American Camping Report. We're going to have a lot of charts, not a lot, because we want to keep it simple on the graphics, but we will have some charts and statistics from the report. And we'll talk about the future of outdoor recreation in a post-COVID-19 world. And then as we go through the program at any point in time, we want to know what type of research do you want to see about the industry later on. So what do you think about that, Mr. DePietro? Hey, you're up there.
Oh, you said new format.
Did I wake you from your nap?
You said new format, and I thought I wasn't part of the show. I mean, here it is, 20 after 7. And, well, it's got to be 7:40 because Kessler's already on.
That's true. Because we want to a good shout out to Rick Kessler and Ben Quiggle. They gave us a nice press write-up yesterday in RV Business Today in Woodall's Campground Management. So we appreciate that, Rick, very much. Well,
we are 20-year overnight sensations.
Yeah, exactly. It took us 2.5 years to get to this point.
Yeah. So, Bob, we should just ask our guest to just type in where they're coming from, because you know what? We get them from all over the United States, actually sometimes in Canada and sometimes in Europe. But if they would just be kind enough to type in where they're coming from, it's always interesting. And our guest, I'm sure, will be able to address camping situations wherever they are. Not to put the extra heat on our guest.
Put the pressure. Well, let's bring him up. Let's bring him up and see what he has to say. Scott Bahr, welcome to RVing in New England. It is a real pleasure having you on tonight.
Oh, thanks a lot. It's great to be here. I love talking about camping anytime I can. So, in fact, that's what I did most of today.
Well, that's what we all do. So we got Chris Andro on. Chris is the part owner with his brother and the family at Hemlock Hill RV down in Connecticut. We actually have dealers that join in, and we actually have dealers that go camping. So, feel free to ask them questions too. As we said, Rick was there. Walter Swenson's on. Walter and his lovely wife Donna is the state director for the Massachusetts Good Sam, or whatever it's going to be called when they figure it out. Bill Sal, hey, Bill, glad you could make it tonight. Bill's doing a lot of work with us in New England and a big show promoter, and we got some special things we're working on with him. But we're not going to tell you about it tonight because it might come about in the Boston show. And Don Polk from North Carolina, Don and Mark Polk from RV Education 101, and Susan Carpenter. Got a member of your fan club, Scott. She says Scott is fantastic. He did great work for RVWA. We're going to talk about that a little bit tonight too, Susan. Scott,
look how many states we have lined up. I mean, Kessler's in Michigan, Walter's in Massachusetts, Chris is in Connecticut. Dawn and Mark are in North Carolina. Susan's probably somewhere in Ohio. Indiana.
Yeah. Could be there. Scott, give us a little bit of your background for folks that you've done a lot of this research, and you've been behind the scenes there for a number of years, and you've done research for KOA for a number of years. You've done research for RVIA, as Susan says, RVWA. So tell us what you do and why you do it.
Well, I used to work in healthcare, and that's all you need to know.
Okay, next.
That's what all the time we have tonight, folks. Thank you for joining us.
was to get out of healthcare. That was my background. I see someone from Connecticut. I actually went to graduate school at UConn. So did my undergrad at Western Michigan. So I'm kind of representing some of the states we have here. But I started working in hospitality before I came over to the camping and outdoor rec world. I worked with Jim Rogers back when he was at Harris Casinos.
That's how you know. Okay.
He came over, when he came over to KOA, and he brought the hospitality point of view, and he wanted to bring in that measurement. Always the hospitality industry in general does a ton of measurement. He brought that to KOA. So it was about 2002, I think. We did just a huge amount of research with KOA. They implemented it at the campground level. It was a really broad-based program, just an outstanding program. Really, the research still gets referenced today. It's migrated, but that's kind of how it got started. From there, I love the outdoors myself, so it was kind of like, oh, this is great. I can actually work, and that's something I like to do. So I've expanded throughout the years. I work with some of the different RV manufacturers I have in the past. I work with RVIA, the RV Technical Institute. We just did some work. As Susan said, the RVWA, which was great. If anyone has a chance, there's an article in RV Pro that summarizes that. They did a really good job of, they have some graphics and stuff in there.
We'll put a link. We'll put a link to that down there. Yeah.
So, and I also do some work in other types of recreation too. For example, I love to fly fish. So it took me a while, but I actually work with Orvis as one of my clients as well. So I try to keep my feet in some other areas as well. I love outdoor rec. I've helped some startups within the industry, whether it's products, outdoor products, as well as services. So my range of work, as anyone who works in market research long enough will tell you, you get a little exposure to almost everything. But outdoor recreation, camping, RVing is kind of my sweet spot. I love it, and I
told you this was spontaneous. So for the people who are on board right now, because we always have trouble when we give away stuff, and I may have already told you this, Scott, so you can't answer. I want to see if anybody else. We'll give till 7:15. Who is the only person in the Baseball Hall of Fame and the Fly Fishing Hall of Fame? And the first person that can post the answer to that will get a copy of Stephanie and Jeremy Puglisi. They were on the show a couple of weeks ago. What is it, Mr. DePietro?
Am I eligible?
No, you're not.
Because I know the answer.
Well, that's why you're not.
Well, I've got one of those books already.
There you do.
They have to type it in, right?
Huh? They have to type it in.
Type it in.
Yep.
Okay.
So, Steve Giano joined us from Mid-Hudson Valley, New York, and Riney Layberger from Bradford RV is here from Brockton, Mass.
Right. So Steve, Scott, we say the show is RVing in New England, but we've really gotten well beyond New England. We were in Canada a couple weeks ago, and somebody got it. Kessler.
Rick Kessler got it. All right, Kessler, that's yours. I got your name on it. We'll go
okay, there you go.
And because you're such a nice guy, Rick, I'm going to send you the RV in New England coffee mug too. Jerry Plant from Cape Cod. Jerry's with Majors RV Service. Tell us a little bit about the. I know you were almost ready to release the new version of the KOA camping report. Want to talk about that and what's going to happen with it? And so we do have some slides that we could or could not pull up.
So Scott, it should say that you did a lot of work on this and almost were ready to go with this, go to print and get it out there publicly. And then all of a sudden, Zagami and I came back from Palm Springs, California, and the world wasn't the same on March 13th.
No, what do you do? We worked for us the time from January 1st up until the middle of April, about this time of year usually is just jammed. We go out, we do the survey, we do the reporting, we narrow things down. Just for anyone who's ever seen or read the camping report, you see that finished product, whether it's online or the printed version. We get it down to usually, I think, about 35 pages or something like that. The document I start with is about 300, which, by the way, tells everybody if there's an answer you want, we probably have it. We just have to pare things down. So anyway, yeah, this year we were all set to go. And honestly, we included some new stuff this year. For the first time ever, I did projections. I actually did a projection for 2020, which I find very ironic now because I was like, I'm going to do a projection. I spent a lot of time. I developed a model, ran it through. I'm like, oh, I feel great about this. And then all of a sudden, boom, the bottom falls out. So we decided that, most of the stuff just it wasn't relevant anymore. What happened in 2019 is relevant, and we are going to use some of that when the new version comes out, probably within the next few weeks. We currently have actually finished the data gathering for an updated version of the camping report, and that's fresh news.
Here's a nice endorsement. Let me pull that up. That's worthy of stage time. Chris Andros says, Camping Report is the most valuable tool in the industry today. I love it. And that's a dealer who really studies this industry.
And camps as well.
And camps as well. He's out there every weekend with the rest of us and highly customer focused.
Scott, my question to you, and I'm sure that our viewers are thinking the same thing, is they want to know what goes into making a report up. How do you reach your respondents, the people that you're questioned? Is it on paper? Is it online? Is it phone? Is it conversation? If you have 300 pages, obviously you're not using one person who's going to spend 20 hours answering questions. So do you take a variety of material from a variety of different people and compile and etc.? Tell us how it goes.
We do we end up getting a total of about 4,000 surveys completed. They're all done online and what we do is we draw from a sample of people throughout the United States. It's a balanced sample, which means that it is representative of the overall population of the U.S. From there, we extract the campers. So first we develop an incidence, and we do a cross-verification on that too from our sample, and then we use Harris polls, for example, to look at incidence levels too, so that we can cross-verify and know what our percentage of campers are. And then from the group that we get, that about 4,000 people, we dig down in and we ask them a series of questions. And it's a long survey. And some people complain about it, but we kind of have to do it that way because we have a lot of ground to cover. And I've been doing market research for a long time, and I'll tell you, people complain the least about doing surveys for camping. Once you get them, they love doing it. And I have people every day who send me emails. It's like, do you have anything else we can do for you? It's like, we love doing it. We love talking about it. So it's all done. It's all surveys. And again, it's all online. We go out there. Everything's balanced, so we feel really good about it being in line with the population. And
choice, fill in the blank. ABC. What do you prefer? What format is it in, as far as that's concerned?
It's a lot of scaled items as well as picked from lists. So my camera is a little off center, I know, or maybe it's me. But it's a combination of things. It's we can ask a question like, how important is this to have at a campground?
Oh, then
yeah, and then we'll have others. It's like, of these, for example, let's take recreation. Like, which of the following activities do you participate in while you camp? And there's a whole list of things that they can choose from.
Is sitting by the campfire one of the activities?
We do not include that as an activity.
But wait, it is with Chris Andro. Chris wants that question on there.
Well, I would say that you don't have a valid sample if you don't include.
You don't have Chris
sitting
Andro
around a giant campfire doing nothing for a whole day at a time, sitting at a picnic table all day, or sitting under your awning in one of those chairs that has 12 different comfort positions. Those are three major activities of a lot of the RVers that I've seen.
Well, we know that one of the highest percentage of campers say that they just want to do nothing, right. not have to go anywhere or do anything. Yep. And we think that covers that territory.
I'm kind of in that category. Scott, I don't know if you can read those numbers, or if you can reference some of those that be trending in camping, or you can probably speak to it off the top of your head, but things that you've seen that are growing. And I know that the the family end of it came up really strong in the last couple of years. Where is that now?
We are still it's still growing. The family campers are growing. That you can tie that directly to the demographics of people who are coming into camping. It's it's a younger group. It's that bubble of the millennials. They're now, I mean, we're coming up on the oldest millennials are going to turn 40 here pretty quick. So they have their families. They've been out. We know they started camping a few years ago because the economy was bad. They get out there. Their parents took them. A lot of the millennials have baby boomer parents, who was the biggest generation of backpackers, by the way, and so camping is kind of at their roots. So it's this huge family factor. I mean, for comparison purposes, the overall population of the U.S., about 35% of households have kids in them. Here in camping, it's 52%. So obviously, we're skewed in that direction. The other thing we see, I call it camping avidity. By the way, I use the term avidity. I do some work with professional sports. I've done some segmentation studies with the Oakland A's, for example, and we use fan avidity a lot, and I like that word, but Toby O'Rourke hates it, so I can never use avidity in anything I say.
Avidity?
but you can say it on our show. That's okay.
I can say it on your show. But I call this the increase in the 3+ trips. This is what I call camping avidity, where campers are getting more avid. They're going more often. That group of people
there we go.
Years ago,
that's what avidity is.
If you're avid,
yeah,
if you're really avid.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, and that is really pushing a lot of the growth. So we're not only bringing in a lot of new people, but we're bringing in the people who are in are more often.
Camping more. So the circle isn't bigger, it's just more active.
Correct. It's a little of both, but yeah. When we first started doing this, when the first time I ever did it for Jim Rogers, we looked at, because we knew that there were a group of people that only went once a year. And that group shrinks every year, the people who only go once a year. So I saw someone post a comment that grandparents take grandchildren. Yes, they do. And we included this in this year's survey, and we're going to answer that question, Rose, for you. And tell you.
Rose, where are you from? I think you're a first-time viewer, which we appreciate.
Rose, just type in where you're from, Rose.
Yeah, and Mark wants his beer.
Beer. No, because I think he sees Chris Andro with a beer mug right above him.
Right, exactly. Are you still in Florida, Mark, or are you making the way home?
Yeah.
Susan, I don't understand your note. Susan says, all the men in the white coats can't find you. I'm not sure. Is that maybe something that was involved with your survey with RBWA, or?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Rhode Island.
Okay.
Rhode Island is open now, right?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I think that's one of those places.
They don't have that many campgrounds to begin with down there.
No, but I think there was some the cartoon we had up earlier.
Without letting the cat out of the bag, what major difference did you see this year? Was there something that really stuck out this year that was different? You don't have to tell us all about it,
but tell us.
I think what you're going to see a lot this year, and I've been talking about this quite a bit myself, is how many I call them lapsed campers. The people that, like, how we talked about people used to go once a year. There were people that sometimes would go every other year or just once in a while. That group of people, some of them are coming back, and it's helping drive some of this growth. And what we're attaching to that are all these things, like, for example, glamping is bringing people back. The ease of access, the breaking down of all these barriers. It's like it's bringing some of these people back in. Besides the new people, which we know has been happening, but this group of lapsed people, I think, is really interesting, and we did talk about that quite a bit.
I'm going to assume that was done pre-COVID-19, before the crisis hit. So
Yes.
if you take that, what's your take now that the crisis is here and the virus is here? Because overall in the RV industry, we're expecting gangbusters in the campgrounds. There was a story today. Rick published a story today. Campground up in that Michigan area that they finally got permission to open. In the first 3 hours, they sold out the campground with 155 sites in 3 hours. So there's this pent up demand. So when you look at your research that's already done and your historical reference to camping in general, what are we going to see after we all go camping?
Well, like I said, we are in the process of updating everything with a point of view of with the COVID-19 situation in mind. And all I can say is that what I just talked about, those new and lapsed people, is going to be bigger. It's going to be bigger.
Scott, when you define the word camping, it includes tenting and RVing, right? Both?
Yep. It actually includes staying in cabins at campgrounds too.
Okay.
Yep.
So what percentage of that audience is the RV crowd, the people that get into some kind of mechanical device to sleep, as opposed to people that sleep on the ground?
It's about a quarter of the people.
So the RV part is the smallest of the camping group.
The tent group is always the biggest. It's ease of entry. People can go out, grab a tent wherever. Yeah. I talk to people about camping a lot. To me, it's really, I love some of the stories people have of, they'd never camped before. I talked to this young couple in New Jersey once, and they just went to Walmart, had never camped. They were sick of the city, grabbed a tent and a couple sleeping bags and drove to the woods in New Jersey, slept overnight, and they were hooked. And by the end of the summer, they had like 20 people going with them, and their life now, You know
what would be a very interesting, are you using the same population that you did in January, in the early part of your campaign? No,
it's hard to keep the same people.
Okay.
This one's going to have both campers and leisure travelers, because one of the things that we wanted to identify in the new one is, are we going to pick up these new people that have never gone camping before or had lapsed, and to see among like leisure travelers, how do they view camping? Do they think this is a better way to travel than other forms of travel? And all that's going to come out in some pretty good detail, and I think it's going to be really cool. I hate to be a tease on that, but unfortunately KOA would kill me if I said too much.
I think what would really be a very interesting question, and I'm not telling you how to run your show because you're a pro and I'm not, but you see this in the news every day. The number of people that have said they will not get on an airplane for a couple of years, and the number of people that say they won't go back on a cruise again. And these are several cruisers, not people that have never cruised, but people that have cruised and won't go back for whatever reason. But the question is, how many people will entertain camping this year, because it takes you away from major metropolitan areas where most of the outbreaks of this coronavirus seem to be occurring?
We're going to tell you that in a few weeks.
Okay.
Everything you mentioned, air travel, cruises, everything. We'll be able to answer that.
All right.
Were those questions asked before? Were those questions asked in prior years?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Steve Giano says, Jerry Plant says, Fisherman State Park and State Line, great parks in Rhode Island. Jim Convoy just joined us. He says he glamped at his shop last weekend. He's real busy. He's got New England RV roof. He gets plenty of business replacing RV roofs. Rick Kessler says the lapsed campers offer some compelling potential for growth. I would agree.
Right.
Steve Giano's got a good point. He says,
they have a lot of avidity in lapsed.
Referencing your camping comment, he said that's odd because anytime I get locked out of an RV site, there's usually 10 spots available. Well, I think I'll take a shot at that one, Steve. There's 33 or 35 million tent campers, Scott, somewhere in that range. What do you use for a number? Yeah. And most of those people don't go to campgrounds. They're out in the woods. They're boondocking. They're out down the beach and what have you. So I think you'll find that to be true on most campgrounds, and most campgrounds have eliminated their tent camping now because they could put Class B motorhomes in that same type of slot. And for leisure travel, we're seeing a lot of people in the Class B motorhomes. So I think what you're seeing, Steve, is more the norm. And if I'm wrong, somebody else pop in there. Rose says, yes, we have camping in Rhode Island. We camp in Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont. Had plans from Hampshire, but just don't know with the virus. Our campers will be valuable, so you don't have to use public bathroom.
Time out. Time out. That is probably a statement that is going to have echoes coming from it for a long time. They don't have to go to public bathrooms. And one of the reasons my wife loves RVing, and she wasn't a fan of it at the start, is our own sheets, our own towels, and our own bathrooms. And that might be an issue that explodes camping and RVing in the coming years.
Sorry, but I got a question
for you.
Was that Scott?
I'll be able to tell you how many people that's an issue for really soon.
All right, but
we asked that question.
Oh, you did? Okay, good.
Yeah,
by the way, one of the things that I know, and it's not part of the camping survey, just some other research that I've done, is that about 1 out of every 5 RV purchasers, one of their main motivations is, and this was before COVID, that they chose to RV for issues of cleanliness, and what, like you were talking about with your wife, having your own sheets. Like I have people tell me things like, I know it's clean because I cleaned it. So it's a factor.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
it is, and it's real. So
I would agree. I do want to challenge Rose on one thing here. Here is the first time she comes on the show, and we're going to beat her up a little bit. But Rose, you said you go camping in Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts.
Why not Maine? That's what he's saying.
Well, yeah, and then she says plans for New Hampshire, but just don't know with the virus. Well, there's virus in all 50 states. So if you're going to go to Vermont, you're going to go to Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont. Yeah, the numbers are down a little bit, but you can find some pretty distant campgrounds in Maine. Because Maine, we just found out this week, you can't go until June 1st. So no campground.
And all of 50, I think Maine is probably one of the smallest numbers in the
They have some of the lowest death rates, and Governor Mill just being real tough on this.
Yeah,
to do that.
Hey, let's do our
Take 10 seconds and do your commercial.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for the live version of tonight's show. We want to thank you, allowing us to reach 6 to 10 to 12,000 people each week on this show, and 90% of those people are doing it on replay. And the only way they can do it on replay is because of the great folks like you that reach down in the bottom of your screen somewhere and push share. So please do that. Share it with someone, and then we get to keep doing this show. And thank you so much.
And Rick says, can't wait to see the report. Scott Rose says, grandchildren plans were Santa's Village. Well, I don't know how many of these places are going to close. I just got word today that Funtown Splash Town in Maine is closed for the season. They're not even going to open.
I just saw that.
Did you see that today? Yeah, they're not even going to open.
Yeah.
They better not close Palace Playland because my grandson loves it. So I'd be disturbed on that. But yeah, we may see a lot if it stretches too far into the season here. Some of these big events or attractions could be closing also.
Bob, we're going to give Rose a big head because it's her first time on. We've already referred to her 3 times. But you know what? You refer to those that are active. Kessler's active. Talk. I don't know. Hopefully, Bill Sell is still with us. Bill, let's go.
Well, he said he would join for about a half hour because he had something else on his docket tonight.
A lot of great people here. Scott, have you ever seen a show where we actually converse with our? It's like a call-in show where you don't have to call in.
That's great.
It's like sitting around a campfire. Scott, one of the things that really stuck out with me on last year's report was one of the statistics was that some of the reasons why people RV, one of it was 86% of them wanted to see more of the USA. And that was, pre-virus. Did we lose you?
Oh no! So yeah, the whole notion of exploring is big among especially RVers. It's a factor that drives a lot of the behavior. The you kind of have a split among travelers overall between, you know, kind of the ones we kind of take, you know, the people who are a little bit more risk taking, that they venture out a little bit further, versus people who, you know, maybe stay really close to home. They go to the campground just down the road. But RVers are much more likely to engage in that. The whole notion of having the road trip, the you know, being able to venture out, it's huge. It is part of, I think it's, you know, in our country, it's part of our culture too. That idea of getting out on the road, and you know, in the new report too, we're going to kind of address the idea of the road trip. We had that in the version we were going to bring release this year. Just the idea of people, you know, engaging in road trips. This time out, we asked it of leisure travelers as well, and it holds a lot of appeal. There's a lot to RVing that we're gonna, I think you're gonna see it fits real well, and the industry itself has a huge opportunity to jump on this stuff. They'd be foolish not to, because there are some great points in you know, I mean, I always have to give hats off to KOA for sharing this information, because they can keep it to themselves. But there's going to be some really good stuff in there that's going to address all this, and I think it's going to be really exciting.
How would you, a couple of things. So when you mentioned that leisure end of it, so those statistics were already baked in, and we knew people wanted to see the road, they want to see more of the country. You know, coupling that with killing their cruises and killing their airplane, again, that just bodes well for the industry coming out of this. But you know, talk about some of these barriers. Everything we've said has been kind of rosy, but and you titled this, and I know somebody won't be able to read the slide, but I'll post them up later on. But we've broken down a lot of barriers. We're getting a lot more Black families. We're getting a lot more Latinos into, and I know that's been a bigger part of the report each of the last couple of years. So talk about the industry breaking down those barriers and the opportunities for the industry with those demographics.
Yeah, this to me is a lot of the stuff that we're gonna talk about this a little bit more too coming up. But you know, this is from a lot of these barriers and dealing with them is kind of stuff that's from information we've gathered throughout the years. And this whole notion here is something that I talk about a lot, and some people, I think they're a little skeptical. But one of the key barriers to people going camping is this notion of safety and security. At whatever level, there's a fear. If they've never done it, they don't know what's going on. But the industry itself is providing, you know, whether it's an RV, structures, different types of accommodations, camping in groups, all these things are dealing with that. Bugs and pests, again, you know, if you're in an RV and other types of structures, you can deal with it. And plus there's information, access to information, the knowledge and resources. It used to be, if people wanted to start camping, they had to, you know, have a family member or a friend, you know, to get them introduced to it or for information. Now it's a click away, and there's more they can get buried in information. It's huge. This access to information is a key driver. And then this idea of having others to participate with. This is something that I've been talking about quite a bit recently because of the proliferation of these groups. And these groups are having a tremendous impact on people getting out.
What groups do you mean, Scott?
Groups like activity groups. It could be whether Latino outdoors, outdoor Afro. There's tons of these groups, and what we found is if people participate in one of these groups, or they go on an outing, whether it's outdoor recreation or camping or whatever, that it increases their confidence, it decreases their fear, it makes them feel more comfortable, it makes them feel more welcome. And now,
in primarily a white group, is that what you mean? With the camping community has got to be 80 or 90% white.
It used to be. It used to be. It isn't anymore. And this is one of the reasons why. These groups that are bringing more people out, the younger generation too. So we're seeing among new campers, it's one of the graphics that I had. It shows that among new campers, it's split 50-50 between whites and non-whites. So, I see Toby's on here.
Toby. Toby.
Thanks, Scott. I can tell you that last year when we were out at the breakfast, and Toby's reading off stats, and we may have had the report with us. Did we have the report in our hands at that time?
No.
But she would go into detail, and you figure, well, you've heard it all, and then in the next slide, it goes into even more detail where you're breaking down the cells of people. Now, I had this question in mind before I saw Janine Pettit welcome, come to our crowd here. But we talked about families with grandkids. We talked about nuclear families. But there are at least two other groups of people with women by themselves and women and women. But it doesn't seem like there are many single male travelers that do it from a recreational perspective. Do you get into any of that stuff in your reports?
In the past, we've measured and gone into the whole idea of whether or not people camp solo. The proportion is usually fairly small. In the past, it's been fairly even between men and women. But one of the things we found, by the way, is that single women campers tend to camp with other single women campers. Or
right,
By the way, to give KOA a plug here, we also found that they love the cabins, like the camping cabins at the campgrounds. So that, again, it's that idea of the safety, security kind of stuff, but having the structure gets you out of the bugs, the notion of having, being animals and stuff like that too. Those fears, it really takes away those fears.
So Janine tells that when she talks about a lot of the women that are thinking about getting into it that may not have an RV, they'll spend the day in the cabin when they've got a few members of the group out there in their RV, so they can still socialize and come to the campfire and have a glass of wine.
We have to ask this question, and hopefully we'll get a response, a honest response from one of the members of our audience. We have to ask, right now, we have to ask Toby O'Rourke if she is wearing yellow.
Something.
Toby, are you wearing yellow?
And if anybody doesn't know what John, we'll do a tutorial for you. Toby's the CEO of KOA, and we're delighted that you could join us tonight. Thank you very much, Toby.
All the women travelers are growing. That's right. That's absolutely right. And, Janine's one of those people that is a happily married woman, but does not, her husband just has no interest in it. So she said, you know what? See you later. Now, she didn't leave him, but she leaves him on weekends. And has got a growing number of people that are following her. And I would wonder, Scott, if the question of the popularity of Class B units coming into amazing popularity now has any impact on the number of single, just couples or women that are packing up, and that heretofore may have been intimidated by a 40-foot Class A diesel pusher.
I think it helps a lot. The young people out there like to call it, van life, living in vans. But it absolutely. And you think of anyone who wants to venture out, whether it's a couple or just getting into it, or a single person. It's much less intimidating in terms, parking, getting around, all that. It definitely, again, having all these options. It addresses all those barriers. Again, the structures, whether on-site at campgrounds, the different types of RVs, the accessibility of the different types of RVs. Now, there's a little. It seems like there's a little bit of innovation going on in the industry. I was at the Dometic conference out in Tucson earlier this year, and there were some really neat units that I saw people had there. Some individual manufacturers that were designing their own. It was just really kind of cool to see what's going on and what people are doing with the designs. And anyway, that just brings more people in. It gives them more options. It makes them feel better about what they're in and what they're driving and what they're staying in.
I want to get to a Andrew made, and it's very important because getting into camping requires a good dealer who can educate, trying to maximize profit, which I know firsthand that a lot of our exactly that, but it's a key ingredient to it. Especially now, we know that when I seminar 90 of my audience at the shows have yet to buy their first RVs, and every dealer will tell you that there are a lot of first-time buyers over the last 2 or 3 years, and I think that's going to explode even more post-coronavirus here. But it's important that the dealers take the time, because once they get into this lifestyle, if we do it the right quality products, we have good grounds for them to recreate in, have the other things like the cabins and the patios and all things that campgrounds have built into it. Lots of times it starts with the dealer. I'd love to see a way that the dealers could attract more of the 35 million tenters, maybe through some events or something to get them in, because that's fertile territory to get these people to move up. But like I say, they tend to, a relative gets them into camping, and then I'd like to accelerate the buying decision for those types of people into the industry itself.
I think that's a really interesting perspective, because we do know that tenters, most of them eventually move into an RV. There's that the classic, you start in a tent, you go to the pop-up, something a towable, and then a motorhome or a fifth wheel.
Yep. Hey, Kessler says Class B growth is our next cover story. It's been the highlight. It's been the
it was the only segment of the market that's been up lately, and it's been growing every year for the last 5 years, 20-25% a year, and it's just going to continue because the variety of products in that space is amazing. Rick Kessler says, Scott, anything in the 2020 report there was a departure from previous reports? Well, I think you alluded to a couple of things, but anything else that you might want to dip your toe in the water?
Nothing that I can really share yet.
Don't feel bashful just because Toby's looking over your shoulder. It's okay.
No, I can't. No, actually, yes, Rick. There is. There are a lot of departures. Both in the version that we had originally done, and then the revised version. The revised version will be a great departure, but we had done so a bit, and we're kind of still in the process about talking about some of what we're going to include and carry over. There's going to be some good comparisons, but yeah, there's a lot of new stuff. What we try to do every year is keep things fresh. I always like to open up lines of communication. If people have ideas, things that are important to them, because when we go into this in the fall, we put ideas out there, and we have a lot of idea generation, and people have ideas. What's trending? What are the things of interest? What do people want to know about? So we stick to some core items because we feel that that's important to measure year over year and trend all that information. But we also want to keep it fresh, because if we don't change it up, I'm like, So it is. It's pretty exciting overall, and obviously we got dealt this hand this year, but our situation isn't any worse than
Well, I think another thing that'll help get those tenters out and people are talking about it more outside just their friends. Because you're right, years ago you went camping with your friends. Now it's topical because it's in the newspapers, it's on TV. Peter Greenberg was on Yahoo Finance last week talking about the growth of the market. RVIA does a great job, Go RVing also, in terms of getting our executives out in front of camera. So I'd make the argument that we're mainstream and we put up as much in conversation as they do with the boats and the airplanes in terms of people. They go down the highway. Everybody says that if they don't have one, they always see one going down the highway and they say, I want to have something like that. But the cabins play a big role, and I know we recommend a lot of times to people that don't have RVs is to just go on a vacation and go across the country and stay at KOA cabins. You don't have to stay at hotels. If you think you might like this stuff, you can go all around the country, all around New England in the summer, never own an RV, but stay at a cabin, car for your little side road trips. And that's an area that I think as an industry we can promote a lot better. The other thing is I need to tap your brain on this one because KOA makes, you're right, KOA makes that available to everybody. And I can mention that to I don't mind. They know we speak our mind, but I can tell you, I mentioned to some of my dealers, and they don't know what the KOA camping report is. So shame on me or shame on the industry. How can dealers help promote that? Have you seen any dealers do anything unique? And Toby, feel free to jump in. But do dealers stock them? I don't see many of my dealers stock them. Is there a program? I guess this one would probably be for you, Toby. But could we get a program where we make cases available and charge them for it? I mean, they pay for some of their brochures and stuff. But I'd like to see dealers have the KOA camping report right on the table because it's generic. It just talks about camping and RVs. And if they're on the border about thinking about doing something, they see one of these charts and they see the data that you're providing to them, that might be the tipping point, and the dealer might close the deal right there.
But I'm gonna beg to differ with you on that, and tell you why I would say that is because I have looked at those reports, and there is so much information, so much detailed information, so much stuff that's drilled down 5 levels that I think you would scare someone away. Whereas I think the best use a dealer could get with it is not to give out the report, but to take one aspect of the report and then do posters or do a campaign or a sale or something around that. But I think, like bring somebody to an RV show for the first time, they're going to be more intimidated and scared than they would if they had only saw a certain sector, whether it be a travel trailer or whether it be a fifth wheel or, et cetera. But Scott, if you were met in an elevator by a stranger and they said, hey, what do you do? And you said, I compiled a North American camping report. And they said, what's that? And you're only going to the 7th floor. How would you define it?
I would say it's an annual report that we produce that summarizes the camping market in the U.S. and Canada. Tells you where people are going, what they're doing, what they're staying in, what their attitudes are, and kind of what the look ahead. What's the future look like for camping?
It's a good profile, and I don't disagree with you, John. I use some of the charts in my seminars, and taken individually, you're right. If we're talking about a particular segment or trying to talk about trying to get people interested in cabins and they don't understand it, then showing the graphs on the cabins would be a good way to do it. Chris Andrews says we hand out KOA maps to every customer who buys. Also, our association with Route 66 Dealer Network gives our customers 10% discount on camping with KOA. So we do get that end of it, and they get so they start going.
Bob, let me ask Chris a question directly here. And Chris, from the sales
you don't have to answer, Chris. If you don't like the question, you have to answer it.
Yeah, but Chris, from an RV dealer perspective, from the sales aspect of it, do you take certain elements from the camping report and turn them into reasons why people should buy, people that might be sitting on the fence, where you can say, hey, you know what, nationally, everybody your age is getting into camping. How do you use the report, Chris, if at all?
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yep.
Marie,
we got good questions.
Marie Moore is heading tomorrow.
North,
so she's heading
to KOA in Georgia.
She's on her way home. Okay.
Yeah.
Walter, stop sharing our secrets. Too many people already. We need more campground capacity. Well, go buy yourself a campground, Walter, and make it bigger. You can do that.
Walter liked RVing so much, he has a second RV in his yard.
He's got two. He just
Well,
picked
you
up.
know, you mentioned the whole idea of getting more tenters into camping or into RVing and such. You know, I mean, in all the work that I've ever done, and just whether it's through this or others, is that you really just need to get people in one for the first time. And and honestly, maybe the first time is, I know someone in the comments also mentioned, you know, the cabins as a great way to get people going. It's awesome. It's a great way. I mean, I have to admit, I was always kind of a backcountry camper, and the first time I ever stayed at the KOA was in one of the camping cabins. You know, and I was like, they delivered like beer, ice, and firewood and stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, I've been kind of missing out on this. But you know, so but that experience, that
in that auto, beer, ice, and firewood.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, people don't do this for me when I'm in the backcountry. So no, it's anyway. I think that's it. Get people to dip their toes in the water. It could be a rental. I've heard from a lot of RVers, like we've talked in the past to people who, you know, really experienced RVers, people who've done it their whole lives. Like, how would you recommend getting people into RVing? And a lot of people say, you know, go try one, rent one, borrow one. Go out and try it. See what you like, see what you don't like. But that's a great way to just get people in and get them to dip their toes in the water a little bit, and you can get a lot of converts that way.
Scott, were there any definitive answers about the number of people that started as a renter and turned into a buyer? Was that in the report?
We don't have that just yet. We've only been tracking that for a couple of years. But we do know that it's converting. You know,
especially now with all those, you know, with Outdoorsy and RV Share, in addition to the traditional rental companies, it would really be interesting to see how many of the people that camped last year did so in a private rental versus a regular company that rents.
We'll have that come out in this. I think it'll be in the new report that's coming out. We did have that, and we can answer that for last year as well. We also know that RV ownership rates are increasing, especially, by the way, it's the Gen Xers who are the fastest growing segment of RV buyers, according to our research.
Interesting.
Now, because when they first came out, a lot of our dealers didn't like them, and they didn't like that I would put them into my seminars. But having any way that we can introduce people to this industry, whether it's through a cabin rental, whether it's to peer-to-peer, or to a regular, one of our dealers that rent units, that gets them on the road to possibly being a much more qualified prospect. And I think a lot of the dealers have come around now to accept that. And I know KOA's got a program with Outdoorsy. And Walter, you should look into that. Walter picked up his second unit. He picked up specifically to do peer-to-peer rentals through Outdoorsy. So, but knowing Walter, because he's an engineer and he's so damn detailed, he's probably going to come back with a smart answer and say, well, I've already checked it and it does this, 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 and this. So I shouldn't challenge Walter on the show. Ed LaTurka just joined us. Good evening, Ed.
Yep. Hey, Scott, how important, if at all, does the word campfire show up in your report at all?
We asked about, like, this was kind of a fun question a few years ago, the kind of what people associate the most with camping. Like the smell of a campfire was for most people the number one association. But we don't ask specifically about campfires in the report. We do know that it's really important. We know people do a lot of outdoor cooking. And open fire cooking is really important to people.
Really, it is, huh? Even open fire in wood around a rock, or in a grill, or both.
Like a fire pit, like a fire pit.
Fire pit, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, it kind of makes sense too that so many people are out there, they're roasting hot dogs, stuff like that. It's a real easy way to keep the kids distracted for a little bit too.
Sure.
Have them cook their own hot dogs or hamburgers and stuff like that. But it's a big part of the experience, that whole kind of bringing together the whole camping experience of having, the campfire, cooking over it if you can, and it's even, it's a real big part of what people associate with camping.
I want to jump back real quick to a comment Chris made, because I think it's an area where a lot of our dealers could learn from it. He's been using the numbers in the report to market to Latinos, Blacks, and Asian buyers. And that's a good way to do it, because as you start to look at your marketing campaign, and those dollars are going to be a little bit thinner after our dealers have lost, a month or two of high activity here. But as you get out and start to market again, those numbers validate investing in those markets. They certainly do. We are at, believe it or not, I told you this thing would fly by, Scott. We're at 7:57. Does anybody have any last questions? John, you must have a couple left. We can wind it down here a little bit.
No, I think I've asked them all, but I'm just amazed at the quantity and quality of the answers in this report, because I'm not a big person who can sit down and read a lot of stuff with stats and graphs and charts and all that other stuff. But the stuff that is included, the material, I shouldn't say stuff, the material that's included in that report is absolutely fascinating to anybody who has anything to do with RVing. And I don't mean from necessarily from the business side of the business, but even if you're a camper because you love camping, again, and I know you don't have it available at Amazon, but the depth of the questioning was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, well, I wanted to put this picture up because I don't want people to think Scott just hides away in his cabin up in Maine, going hiking and in the trails. He's
northern Maine,
northern Maine, right? He is one of the most respected researchers. I don't call reporters; that's a dirty word. But here he is addressing the RV Industry Association meetings and deals with a lot of the CEOs and the manufacturers and with Toby directly. So, for a Maine guy, Scott, you dress up pretty well.
Once in a while, they let me out, grab the suit and hit the road. I do. This year was tough because I tend to go to a lot of conferences and stuff this time of year, and they obviously all got canceled. So I'm literally just holed up here in Maine. It snowed on Monday for everyone.
In Bethel.
Bethel, yeah. So
is that where Columbia River is?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Chris wants to know when he gets the report. I think you said maybe in a couple of weeks, Scott, 2 or 3 weeks.
Probably more like early June. I'm going to say
early June. Okay.
It depends on how quickly I can turn things around.
Okay.
But we're in process right now, and we're working hard to get this information compiled and out there. By the way, just to show everybody, when you're here in Maine, to know that people support the industry. This is from the Orono Brewing. It's called Van Life.
Van Life, hey.
Van Life, and it's a beer.
Right, and it's a beer.
Beer, yeah.
Orono Brewery.
Yeah.
Wow.
Orono, that's where the University of Maine is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I haven't.
So there you go. It's not open.
Yeah, but they've got so many microbreweries up there. I spend half my, when I don't drink my Jack Daniel, I spend half my summer out of microbreweries and hit 3 or 4 every Saturday. So we'll have to do that one. Rose just piped in and said, market to healthcare workers. Rose, if you go under videos on the left-hand side, and you're on our site now because you're watching us live, go to the left menu, click under videos. All of our shows are archived, and we did one on RVs for MDs and another program. What was that last Saturday? I mean, the days just run together.
I think it was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
I'm going to do a follow-up.
You'll see a whole show that we did, and we've been doing special Saturday nights. We thought we were going to do it one time, and this week is probably going to be our 6th one. So
right. I think I'm going to do a follow-up with Sarah from the Massachusetts version of RV for MDs, and maybe we'll call Canada too, because we want to have that show. focusing on full-timers.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it. Rick says, wonderful show, gentlemen. Thank you to Scott and KOA for providing this annual report. Ronnie says, great show tonight. Be safe all. Susan says, great show. Rose, good show. Thank you. Scott, I'm going to let you have the last word. We're delighted that you could take the time to join us tonight. And Scott and I try to get together a couple of times a year and have a beer and talk about the industry in the old port down in Portland. We haven't been there yet this year, but Scott, I'll give you the last word.
We'll get there. No, it was great. Thank you very much for having me on. I always try to give a shout out to KOA because I think it's incredibly generous. I've been working in this industry since 1992, and I've never worked with a client who's as generous with information as they are and as committed to it as they are. I know that I work with them, but I really mean that.
We promote them too. I mean, the information there. I mean, every sales. That's the other area. We try not to go over 8 because our fans are so loyal to us. But that's an area. If I owned a dealership, maybe I wouldn't have it out there for my customers. But you could bet your life, every one of my salesmen, every one of my service technicians would be reading that report to see what their customers are like.
And the only other thing I would say is, anyone, please feel free to reach out. I love talking about camping. If you have a question, there's a real good chance we'll have an answer for you. So keep the questions coming and the information. I love information. I love talking to people about what's going on, what they're hearing on the ground. I use it and how we develop our questioning from our conversations with people in the industry. So please feel free.
I'll post your email up there later on. Yep.
Okay, great.
In fact, what we do ask our guests, because we don't get a chance to get to all the comments, but maybe tomorrow or the next day, if you get a chance, just run through the comments, and if there's some there that we didn't answer and you have an answer for it, feel free to push that answer out there. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right,
okay,
Scott, thank you, and thank you, everybody.
Saturday night.
Great show.
Saturday Night Live.
That's right, Saturday night. What do we got Saturday night? We don't even know.
We have another great show.
Okay.
Saturday night.
And next Wednesday night, we have Sandy Ellingson, who is the new executive director of the RBWA, and she's going to bring us up to date on all the things that she's launching. And she's going to have a special surprise and a national announcement. So there's your reason to tune in next Wednesday night, and that's all I'm going to tell you. All right, folks. Thank you very much. We'll see you down the road. Good night.
Night.